Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for our first Learn Live session, Manage AI Data Security Challenges with Microsoft Purview. My name's Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our moderators to answer. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Sophie, Max, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Sophie, and I'm here with Max on our first of 3 series, Manage AI Data Security Challenges with Microsoft Purview. Hey, Max, how are you doing today?
Thank you, Sophie. Doing well. It's great to be here today. I love the start of the series on a very, very hot topic. We're getting lots of questions, so happy to be discussing this in more details today.
Yeah, really exciting. So maybe we'll start with a little bit of introductions. So I'm Sophie Ke. I am a senior product manager here at Microsoft, and I focus on Purview to secure and govern AI as part of the customer experience engineering group. Max, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Max Bombardier. I work also in the customer excellence engineering team. I help customer deploy across our Microsoft Purview data security stack, really helping to organizations to leverage Bash on a tool, get them secured more quickly, as we'll start diving into the details today.
Yeah, sounds great. So we have a lot to cover today, and I'm super excited. I was actually having a conversation with you, Max, earlier when we talk about Purview to secure and govern AI, how crucial it is to really understand the underlying foundation with Purview data security. So today's session is all about data security features to help you secure and govern AI. So We'll cover how sensitivity labels work for Microsoft 365 Copilot. We'll cover data loss prevention, as well as insider risk management, and bring that all together with adaptive protection. So let's get started. How's that sound, Max?
Yeah, that sounds great. Lots of
All
capabilities to talk about.
right. Max, honestly, I can't even imagine a life without AI now. I know it has just happened. Is it 18 months ago? Maybe 2 years,
Yeah,
Max?
about 2 years. Yeah, but really
Years.
big transformation in the past year for
Yes,
organizations.
absolutely. I know that for me, like I utilize Microsoft 365 Copilot daily, even I would say, hourly. And I know a lot of this is, a huge topic for people, not only to, implement AI, but also to balance that with securing AI as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you didn't guess from the name, I'm French. I work in English all the time. I use Copilot every day to help me narrate this better when I write anything, but also getting started on content and write back. But also the questions always arise into, am I seeing everything I should be seeing? Am I leveraging the data correctly? So I guess, of course, being very conscious on data security, but definitely has a very powerful impact on organizations.
For sure. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Purview, right? So Purview, as part of the zero trust pillar, we are the data pillar, right? So we wanted to showcase this slide to showcase the capabilities of Purview. Max, do you want to just briefly cover
Yeah.
that for us? Yeah,
Yeah, we've brought along Microsoft Purview a couple of years ago, combinations of multiple tools to give you a single pane of glass just to look at data to be able to secure it. So when we think of the pillars of solutions that we have today, many of you have seen versions of this slide, but essentially when we talk about data security, data governance, and data compliance, going across into when we think of there's one way at Microsoft that we're doing this. If there's anything about audits, there's one platform. If we do anything for DLP, it's or data loss prevention, it is one platform across. This gives you the best of both worlds because we can then go in deep in any of these silos like we're traditionally used to, but it gives us also, especially when a world of AI, it's all about bringing together data to give you better insights and better control that allowed us to quickly iterate when AI came to be about well, it's been a while, but 2 years ago, became extremely popular. Controls were highly requested. It allowed us to iterate extremely rapidly on what we'll discuss today in terms of controls for this. So Purview bringing all of this together, it's an addition to what you have already today if you're leveraging anything of Purview.
yeah. And when we think about Purview to secure and govern AI, what we're really talking about here is the set of features that already exist within data security, data risk and compliance, right? Your MIP, DLP features, your data lifecycle management features to secure and govern the prompts and or responses that your end users have with these AI applications. So
That's right.
yeah, so
And
let's
then and it's end
yeah,
to end, right? So when we
yeah.
think of getting better visibility, getting better control, getting better management of that information, how long should you keep it? So very comprehensive suite across.
Totally. All right. So I know this session, we have a series of 3 sessions, and this session is focused on the data security product. So your information protection, data loss prevention, and insider risk management features to secure and govern AI. We'll have obviously our follow-up one on data risk and compliance, and then tying it together in our third last session that will be on data security posture management for AI. So very excited to talk about this. All right. Data security. Max, what is it?
Yes. Yes, it's an old product. It's a new product. Think of it as a new way of breaking the silos that we've had in the past. So when we think of data security at Microsoft, it's currently a triangle, but that is about to change. We keep adding more solutions, but think of it as traditionally we have been looking at information protection, the sensitivity label capabilities that we discussed, and I'll expand a little bit on this. We talk about data loss prevention. How do we make sure the data doesn't, is prevented to go out, and then insider risk management to look at behavioral from users. Now, traditionally, these have been approached as separate pillars by organization and how to, well, sometimes really deployed in silos. What we have been doing is bringing this as an all-encompassing comprehensive suite of data security. That's why it's a bit of old and new together. And when we think of the circle in the mid, and well, smack in the middle for adaptive protection, what's great about this is, can we simplify? I think the thought here is, can we simplify the way we have been approaching data security? We want to get you more secure quickly tomorrow, to get you extremely more secure, get the right policies in place. But then think of adaptive protection as that link between what is traditional data loss prevention and insider risk management, which is about looking at the behaviors of users. Is someone doing something risky? Are they starting to leverage more files that they shouldn't have? Are they having a behavior such as, lowering the label, the sensitivity of the label, and then trying to exfil that content to Gen AI application? And that's where adaptive protection comes in to help you secure users that have been doing, might be doing normal operations, but once they start doing it at a bit of a scale, that's something that's risky. We can then protect them further from, and setting up the right enterprise guardrail. So really bringing all together the best of these tools and then complemented now with data security posture management.
Yeah, I love it. It's that integrated and layered approach, right? Layer in our
Absolutely.
defense and how we secure AI. So um, I think so. So where we're going to start. So obviously with Purview, we secure AI apps. And what are some types of AI apps? There are Microsoft 365 Copilot, and there are also other AI apps that you can access through the web browser. So, for example, ChatGPT Consumer, Google Gemini, DeepSeek, Microsoft Copilot. So, we're going to start our session and our journey today on how Purview can secure and govern Microsoft 365 Copilot.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is a little bit about what Microsoft 365 Copilot does and advantages of it. And I know at the beginning of the session, we talked about using this in our daily life. And I would say it has increased, my I guess decrease the time needed to do a lot of my work and increase my efficiency.
That's right. It helps us just to focus on the right amount of work
Yeah,
for the right things, rather, and helping us where, could use assistance, whether it's just summarizing anything or helping us keep track of things that we need to keep track.
for sure. And I think what I really want to highlight here is that it is connected to your own business data within your tenant, and that information stays within your tenant, right? And then we have that enterprise grade security, privacy, and compliance that is built in. So part of that is Purview. So we're going to talk about some of the functionality that helps to support the security that's underneath, Microsoft 365 Copilot.
That's right. So when we think of our back, for example, whatever I have access to, so Copilot can leverage only things that you have access as a user. So completely identity based. And also when we think of, we mentioned briefly information protection, and those sensitivity label can help you address at scale information that you would like Copilot not to leverage. So that ties in. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing in this part of the the sensitivity labeling. So when we think of labels, a couple notions here. First one is making sure that information that it uses, if you have documents that are confidential, all employees, the prompts or the responses to prompts rather, will inherit the highest sensitivity that will from the information to leverage. So did you want to talk more a little bit and more details on the scenario, Sophie?
Sure. Yeah. So in this scenario, what you're seeing here is that when I'm asking Microsoft 365 Copilot, I'll say Copilot going forward in this conversation. But when I ask Copilot to summarize a specific document, the response will mention that this document's sensitivity label. So in this example, confidential all employees, and it will also, this conversation will also inherit the sensitivity label of that referenced file. So we ensure that the conversation inherits the most restrictive sensitivity label from that from that document that was referenced in the response.
That's right. I would say the benefit of labeling. So it's enhance. Copilot is enhancing on the security that you have today. We'll meet you where you're at on the strategy. So this conversation today is not about how to implement labeling at scale, but you can see that where the benefit would be. And we have those strategies available on helping you label at scale.
Yeah. And to add to that, once you have your sensitivity labels applied to your documents, uh, Copilot also honors the access control restriction that is on the labeled content as well. Max, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, I mean, so when we think of the ability for when with labels content, we can have encryption, we can have very specific rights on these labels. So not only you might have access to the document itself, but you don't have the rights to extract the content. So therefore, further enhancement on making sure that Copilot is only leveraging what you allow it or what the administrators are allowing it to use.
Yeah, I think one other thing I do want to call out. So Purview is great, right? We honor sensitivity label, but Copilot in general acts on behalf of the user and will not provide any information back that the user does not have access to, right? I think that's the baseline.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna call
And I
that
see a
out.
question in chat just from, does it do that by default? And the answer is yes, right? So this is inherent to the capabilities of Copilot.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so this is an example here. So you're asking information uh, to Copilot about sensitive info, and so one brand new feature that we've recently launched that is in public preview is called DLP for Copilot. And so Max talked about the sensitivity label, and we're honoring the sensitivity label and the control in the sensitive label. One step further is that with DLP for Copilot, you are then able to set up a policy to restrict Copilot processing on content that is labeled with specific sensitivity label. So
That's right. Highly
yeah.
requested feature. Oh, sorry, you're
Oh,
going and present it. Yeah,
I'm going to show
show it, show it.
go ahead, Max.
No, please show it first.
Yeah. So this is a setting in our DLP for Copilot policy. So in this page, where you can see is that we've set up a DLP policy, and we create a new rule to say if the content contains a specific sensitivity label, and you can choose which one you want there. In my example, it's the Obsidian merger. We don't want any documents that's labeled with Obsidian merger to be processed by Copilot. And then the action, as you can see in the bottom, is that it will prevent Copilot from processing that content. One thing I do want to point out, and I think this is a confusion point for a lot of our customers, is that this is a block processing feature. It's not a block search feature. I think, Max, you've definitely heard that from customers as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and that's where I was excited about this feature just before you showed it. Is it's been
Yes.
requested a lot by customers to look. I don't want to impact the way users are, using the content today as is. I don't want to restrict maybe the extract permissions. I want to keep the way they have it. However, I'd like to make sure that, for example, highly confidential information or Obsidian merger in this example is not being processed by Copilot. So this is a very quick way to make sure that highly confidential content is not leveraged. Easy
Yes.
to
And
use.
I think the key I heard you mention, and I like to call it out just again, is that it doesn't require that sensitivity label to be encrypted, right? It can be just I call it the regular, sensitivity label. You do not need to encrypt it for this to work.
That is correct. And then that also very fundamental on how we think of labels as being that tag or that anchor that we can leverage on many of the data security capabilities across Purview. And this is just one great example. Security doesn't necessarily mean encryption. That's just one of the methods to protect information to make sure that if it goes out, it is protected. But in this context, very easy to use. You can have labels very quickly, even if they don't encrypt. So meaning there's no end user impact tomorrow, but then Copilot is secure.
Yeah. And this is an example of an output. So I'm asking Copilot to summarize Obsidian merger, which I have labeled with that Obsidian merger sensitivity label that I want to block processing. So what Copilot responds is that it found the document title Obsidian merger, but it cannot access the content due to that organizational policy, that DLP for Copilot policy we have implemented. So again, stressing the difference, right? It cannot process the content of it, but it does not affect search. And when we say it doesn't affect search, it means that Copilot still knows that it exists. You can still open that document as a user, and other Purview features like auto labeling, DLP will not break. Anything you want to add there, Max?
No, that's right. Easy to use. It is, the right level of security. If you're concerned about this piece, do look up this public preview.
Yes. So we are now going to, so that was DLP and Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity labels for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we're going to pivot a little bit here and now and talk about other AI. I think this is also top of mind for a lot of our customers and partners, which is not only, Purview, oh great, you can secure and govern M365, Microsoft 365 Copilot, but what about all these other AI applications that are out there that, my end users may be using and, copying and pasting and so on of sensitive information into. So really this, so Max, endpoint DLP has been around a long time, right?
That's right. We've
Yeah.
had this for a couple of years, greatly used, and we were able to quickly iterate on endpoint DLP to provide some restriction, because now, as you said, the concern is all about the use. I mean, we can look at any social feed and how much AI or Gen AI websites are used. But when we look, it's like, well, is this safe? Are they using it correctly? Do we want to block it? And how do we control and provide that control very quickly is what we'll be able to showcase.
Yeah. So with endpoint DLP, we're essentially extending that functionality to help apply these restrictions to generative AI websites, service domain group. And so I do want to call that out, which means we have a list of, I think, over 400 now. I lost count, but over 400 AI websites that we support for this feature. So let's
And I
take
remember when that list was about 50 not too long ago. So it grows very quickly, and that's something we manage for you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So in order to use endpoint DLP, so endpoint data loss prevention, to secure the sensitive info being copy and pasted and uploaded to these other sites, there are some prerequisites. So the first thing is that we do require you to install Microsoft Purview browser extension in your browsers, and we also need you to onboard your devices to Microsoft Purview so that we can detect and then help you protect.
And these are standard steps you would normally have followed if if you leverage endpoint DLP today. So really, there's no additional installation required in context. It's net new capabilities that we added. So.
For sure. I just want to call this out. I think there was a little bit of confusion around the browser extension for Windows and Mac users. There are two solutions, and we will cover insider risk management after we cover endpoint DLP. But there are two solutions that we have to help you secure other AI. So endpoint DLP helps to detect and block the uploading, copy and pasting of sensitive information to these other AI apps. And insider risk management helps you detect when an user goes and visits these other AI apps. So they together, both these solutions come together to help you secure and protect other AI app interactions. So on Windows, if you're using Edge, Chrome, or Firefox, if you want to use both these features, we would want you to install the Purview browser extension for Windows. On Mac OS, endpoint DLP is not necessary for the enforcement of data loss. However, insider risk management currently is not supported in Mac, so if you're on a Mac OS, you don't need to install the Purview browser extension.
Love to see this update. This was a lot of requested, we had a lot of questions about this, and
Yes.
happy to see this clarified.
Perfect. All right, so let's take a look, a little bit of a walkthrough demo of what this looks like. So here I'm in the Microsoft Purview newly combined portal, and I'm in the solution data security posture management for AI. And I do want to call out here, we have a brand new blog that just launched this morning on how to use data security posture management for AI to secure Microsoft 365 Copilot, enterprise AI, as well as other AI. So be sure to check out that new blog. We'll throw the link in our session as well. So I'm here in data security posture management for AI, your one-stop shop and centralized place to manage all things AI interaction. So when you first land in here, there is a get started section. And in it, you can already see it asks you to install the browser Purview extension and onboard the devices to Microsoft Purview. So those are the two steps we just covered. Once you've done that, you can then click on the Extend Your Insights for data discovery, and you can now view this policy to detect sensitive info pasted or uploaded to AI sites. So this is essentially that endpoint data loss prevention policy, right, Max?
Yes. And then, do want to call out there's a lot of other good things for data security posture management for AI, which I know we're not going to cover all of them today. I highly recommend going to look at the recommendations and reports that you can see there as well, just to know sort of what's out there already in the environment and to understand the risk that you have.
Yes. So these are what we call I think we call them one-click policies, right? So it's literally one click. You can see that blue button at the bottom there that says create policies. You click it and we will create it. So once you have created this policy, which detects sensitive info, pasted or uploaded to AI sites, in the Activity Explorer section of DSPM for AI, you will be able to see an activity which is called DLP rule match. And so the goal, obviously, of that endpoint DLP solution is to, number one, detect that this has happened, and then number two, you can optionally choose to block it. So by default, it is a detection policy to start. And so this DLP rule match here allows you to see, as you can see here, we have actually quite a lot in our demo tenant of DLP rule match going into
One's
ChatGPT,
risky.
right? And with high risky users, going to ChatGPT and Google Gemini. So as an Purview admin, you can come here to DSPM for AI Activity Explorer and take a look at these alerts. And so in the detail of this alert, you can see who was the user, right, that tried to either copy and paste or upload sensitive info into these other AI sites. And in this example here, what you're seeing is that user 972, which is a high-risk user, tried to access ChatGPT, and it tried to copy and paste or upload sensitive info that contains employee ID, US Social Security number, lots of sensitive info from your tenant to ChatGPT, which probably deserves a block.
Considering there's a full page of risk right there, so U972 definitely is risky. But so when we look at this, and I love, also the previous picture was showing, as I said, that triangle of data security, posture management in this context,
Right.
but it's a single app that creates policies across what it needs. So if it's a DLP or insider risk management, think of it as that overlay. It's an easy to use, but you're also in control. So even though it's a one-click creation, if you need to go in and edit or change the policies, it will be there relevant in the data loss prevention or insider risk management, helping you addressing or adjust based on if you want to do this just for specific users. So again, you're fully in control, but we're there to help you identify the risks and quickly create the policies.
Yeah, perfect. And so I want to call out that even though this one-click policy was created in DSPM for AI, you can also create this policy directly in DLP. And you can see this policy in the Policies tab in DSPM for AI, and you can also see it in the DLP solution. So what we're really saying is that if you have a more granular, admin control within Purview, you can have multiple places where you see this and manage this policy. So this is the policy that we've created: discover sensitive prompts in AI assistance within data loss prevention solution. And we're just going to go through some of the settings that is actually applied to this policy, so in the back end how this policy is applied. So when you go ahead and either edit the policy or you go ahead and actually create one from scratch, obviously you name the policy, and the location that you want to apply is devices. And I believe, Max, here you can actually choose and scope this to specific users or groups, or choose all users.
That's right.
Okay, perfect. And then we're going to customize this DLP rule. So the name, obviously it's already been created, but you can name it yourself, but we've named it audit sensitive data shared to generative AI sites. And you can click the edit button to see the details here. So as I mentioned, this is a detection policy to start. So if you create it directly using that one-click policy in DSPM for AI, it is only an audit only, right? Detection only. It's not going to actively block. So you can take the time to look at those DLP rule matches, see if there is a lot of unfortunate incidents, and choose then, you can see the drop down here, you can change that audit only to block with override, block, allow, or off. Yeah. Anything you want to add here, Max, in terms of the settings?
If for those of you already leveraging data loss prevention, you're going to see that this is very familiar, because this is exactly the same screen. What I love about this is it creates a template for you that you can leverage, edit, changes. So to your point, it is audit only by default. You can change it, but you can also segment it to say, well, we're going to keep auditing for these users. We're going to start blocking them, other users. Again, fully in control to manage this.
Perfect. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to now insider risk management from that. So what we just covered was for other AI applications, how we can use endpoint DLP to detect and then block, if we choose, right, the copy and pasting and uploading of sensitive information to those other AI. So now we're still staying in the other AI piece. And so this is all about what we can do with insider risk management. And there are two things we can do with insider risk management. We'll go through both. The first one is the one that I mentioned that also requires the same browser extension and onboarding your devices, which is detecting browsing to generative AI sites. This is the same, so I will cover this a little bit quickly, but yes, because it is it is dependent, right, on your browser to do this. So you will, for Windows, you will need to install the browser extension, and unfortunately on Mac OS, we currently do not support this feature. So this is a Windows only feature for insider risk management to detect visits to other AI sites. All right, so we're back to this Microsoft Purview screen. We're back on that main page on getting started. And if you remember, we were talking about the detect sensitive info pasted or uploaded to AI sites just now, right? The endpoint DLP policy. And just above that, and I guess we're covering this in separate terms, but really that one-click policy will create all of them for us, right? But yes, breaking it down, the second piece to this extend your insight for data discovery is an IRM policy, or insider risk management policy, that will detect when users visit AI sites. All right.
And if I was to just, as we're flipping through these, I mean, data loss prevention is all about preventing the misuse of it. So yes, it is about auditing for both, but then data loss prevention prevents, as Sophie mentioned, upload to cloud, paste to browser experiences. And then insider risk management will then sort of look into the behavioral use to identify if the user is now risky based on the amount. That's one of the triggers. There's multiple triggers we can use of sensitive information being used on those Gen AI. But it's definitely, again, one platform. We need to audit. We need to understand signals, and then we can identify how to address it, the risk.
Exactly. All right. So now that it is that one-click policy, so what I'm showing here is that even though it's that one-click policy, what is behind the scenes, right? So just like you can create the same endpoint DLP to secure other AI in the DLP solution, you can also choose to create this IRM policy directly in the IRM solution as well. And so when you create that IRM policy, you're choosing a specific template. And in this case, the template is risky browser usage template. So you want to make sure you pick this template if you are building it from scratch inside the IRM solution. And so when you choose this new template called risky browser usage, it will allow you to select triggering events for this policy. And as you can see, there are other indicators or triggers here, right? Browse to malware websites. But what we're really focused on in terms of securing AI is obviously the last one, which is browse to generative AI website. So we want to make sure that is selected. So once you have that IRM policy in place, when you visit DSPM for AI reports, one of the reports would be this specific report you're seeing here, which is tracking the total visits your user has had in the last 30 days to other AI apps. And it will also show you which specific AI sites and I guess the graphs for each of them and the colors.
Yeah, and we've had, I mean, the initial request was we need to know how users, any organizations are attempting or leveraging Gen AI capabilities, and then we want to start looking into which ones and for what. So as you take the same question and start, dissecting it into very specific, and then the controls for it, great starting point. And again, DSPM for AI can help you quickly address the policies needed for this. So if you'd like to call out, there is a question or
Yeah.
clarification asked about what does it mean for Firefox, because the previous slide showed it is not supported. Anything to share for this?
For sure, yeah. So within our Learn docs, we do show, for example, with endpoint DLP, we support the plugin, so Purview plugin for Chrome and Firefox. So we have documentation on that. So as I mentioned, you do not need the Purview browser extension for endpoint DLP on Edge. However, now that we're talking about the insider risk management feature to detect visits to other AI, you do need to install the web browser extension on Edge and Chrome. We do not have documentation on Firefox currently, so that is why it's listed as not supported.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. So this is all external. This is other AI sites, essentially your consumer AI sites, right? So example you can see here is ChatGPT, Cloud, DeepSeek. And when we say Microsoft Copilot here, I know there's a lot of rebranding, a bit of confusion on the name. I apologize. So Microsoft Copilot was previously named Microsoft Copilot for Bing, which is the free consumer version that's available through the browser. And so this is the non-enterprise version, and this is the Microsoft Copilot.
Good clarification. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, the great questions in the chats. So that was the insider risk management policy to detect visits to other AI sites. We do have a new template as well in insider risk management, which is the risky browser usage. So this is another template within insider risk management that tracks risky prompts and sensitive responses in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we're jumping back. So we covered, Microsoft 365 Copilot, how it supports MIP, right? Microsoft Information Protection Sensitivity Labels, and we have DLP for Copilot as well. And now we're bringing it back. So there's also insider risk management, right? If you think about that triangle that Max talked about. So in terms of insider risk management for Microsoft 365 Copilot, we also have risky browser usage template. All right, let's take a look here. So in DSPM for AI, we were, in the overview tab just now where it talked about getting started. There is also a recommendations page where where all the policies we have for Purview to secure and govern different kinds of AI is all listed here for you to review. And one of that recommendation is the insider risk management (IRM) policy to detect risky interactions in AI apps. So you can then use this to help you, again, one-click policy to create this policy to detect whether a user submitted a prompt containing sensitive information, so containing SITs, or if it received a response that also contained SITs. So again, this is what it looks like in the back end if you were to create it from scratch. When you create a new insider risk management policy, you can choose a template, and this new template is now available called Risky AI Usage. And so with this risky AI usage, once you have it created, you can also track. And I think this is a great leadway in just a moment talking about adaptive protection, but I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But really what it is with insider risk management, as Max talked about, is tracking that user risk. So not just that this person did one thing, but a series of unfortunate events, right, that we're seeing here.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. And definitely a good jump into adaptive protection that's coming up right next. And we can see as part of this example, the series of activities that a user did, not just one type of activity as well. That's a context of we've removed label, we've downgraded label. It could be a mix of obfuscating, like renaming the file or zipping it. And then together, it provides a high or elevates the risk of the user. And that's where it's great to see from an alert standpoint and inside risk management to give you that overview of what's happening for that user, but also investigation for it. So now you can go back in time and see what else is the user doing that could be constituting as a risk.
Exactly. Before we go into adaptive protection, I do want to show this report that is available again in DSPM for AI. So once you've created that IRM policy to detect risky AI usage, you will also be able to see in your reporting dashboard in DSPM for AI the total amount of prompts and responses that you've either received or entered that contained sensitive or risky content.
If I'd say just maybe recap, because we've talked about
Mhm.
two policies or they have similar naming as well. So the first one's all about knowing of third-party Gen AI if they're using outside browsing to them and trying to use them, versus this is
Mhm.
all about the prompts and the Microsoft Copilot experience,
Yes.
almost looking whether they're trying to jailbreak in a sense by using sensitive information or risk information from the organization. So great additive capability. I do recommend looking into both of them to get a good sense of how users are testing out with Copilot and Gen AI.
Absolutely. And to really bring it home, Max, we talked about information protection sensitivity label as that baseline, that grounding, right? And then we talked about DLP to help to prevent data loss, whether that's internally or externally, right, to other AI sites internally within Microsoft 365 Copilot. And then we talked about insider risk management and the user risks. So the users that are interacting with AI, what are their user risks? So let's talk a little bit about adaptive protection.
Yes, I love adaptive protection for a number of reasons. I think in my role in data security, it's always a collaboration or a challenge, I would say, rather between collaboration and security. We always have a little bit of that slider into, am I more secure? But then I have risks to my collaboration, and then users can't work, and we know that stops project. What adaptive protection is all about is bridging that gap. How can I make sure that regular users in regular business, meaning in this case, it's a minor risk, right? So you're doing normal work, you might just get a policy tip. We're just auditing the action. So again, with everything we just discussed so far, it's something that they can use. So in context, maybe they can use Gen AI sites and they can use sensitive information in Copilot. But as they start adding a lot of those activities together, or the mix of triggers and threshold that we mentioned earlier, now we can change as the risk changes. We can change the restrictive actions in DLP. So now instead of just doing policy tip, we can elevate that to blocking with override, for example, and then completely blocking for elevated users. What's also, considered an insider risk is not necessarily just about an insider malicious user. It could be for any purposes that credentials might have been compromised, or the user's just not aware of how risky what the actions are doing. This is helping you set the right enterprise guardrail. Again, giving you enough security versus collaboration together. So very great integration between insider risk management and data loss prevention.
Great. All right, let's take a look at it in action here. So I know adaptive protection, Max, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Max, obviously, adaptive protection is beyond just AI, right? You can use this,
Correct.
right?
That's been
Yeah.
out for some time now. I loved it before AI. I loved it even more with AI now.
Right. Obviously, our focus is on AI. So let's talk through this, right? So we have this is insider risk management, and we have a setting here for adaptive protection. So as we talked a little bit earlier, we have all of these detection policies in place in IRM, right, to detect users accessing Gen AI sites, detecting risky AI behaviors in the prompting with Microsoft 365 Copilot. So now essentially what we have here is the list of users and their risk level, right? And
That's
so
right.
with this information, what can we do, Max?
So as you see from the settings that we have today, what you can do is, first of all, you identify it. Well, you got to turn on adaptive protection. Then you can identify what are the risks level and what do they comprise. So and those configuration, there are some defaults that you can leverage as well. The bulk of the configuration, if you're just getting started, it will be in the configurations of data loss prevention. And as in data loss prevention, will be a mix of what we've shown in the previous slide, but essentially giving you that flexibility of restrictive actions based on the risk level. And that's truly the bigger change that we have in DLP. Very simple configuration. You can have the same detection over and over, but if it is for a risky user, you start blocking them instead of just auditing. So really, again, for that bridge, super simple to configure, all done through the Purview console.
Perfect. Yeah. So one example is, for example, we said, there are users who, interact with other AI like ChatGPT, Consumer, or Google Gemini, and that's okay. But if it's a high risk user and we detect it using adaptive protection, we can then say for those high risk users, block them from prompting to these AI sites, right? So
And it could be a mix of sensitive information, as you discussed and shown it in one of the template there. It
yeah.
might be allowed to go to Gemini, but not if
Mm,
you start using sensitive information. And as you start doing this, or you try to upload maybe one of the sensitive file
yeah.
that's been labeled and you didn't do the LP just yet. So if you didn't do that, then the risk can be elevated. So that's a good way to get started if you're not ready to block users altogether, but giving you
Mhm.
sort of that step through as you want to allow them, but at some point you want to block them. That's what adaptive protection is all about.
Yeah, I think there was a really good analogy I heard, which is the hammer versus the scalpel, right? The hammer is no, you don't, no one in our organization can have access to any of these AI sites. We're going to block them all, which
That's right.
hinders productivity, right? And I think really that's the balance using the scalpel. And I think the scalpel is really where the key, where Purview shines, right? We use these signals, these user risks as signals to help you use this scalpel to say only block the high risk users from entering sensitive information to these other AI sites.
This is probably where I can go off track for another hour, but yes, absolutely, it's a great analogy. I love it because the biggest blocker to any implementation of data security is when you're blocking too much, then
Mm,
it just stops a project because you stop someone who should not have been stopped. This really gives you that lever to get into, provide productivity and then set up better guardrails for organizations.
right. So this is an example, right, of a block essentially with adaptive protection. And so for high risk users, you will get this notification that unfortunately you cannot access this right now. Your signing was successful, but does not meet the criteria to this specific resource. So yes, using a scalpel to make sure we allow for that productivity, but we also want to make sure the interaction and your data is secure.
That's right. So in context of today, because adaptive protection has been there for a couple of years, context of today, really think of the addition of risky, or sorry, just any Gen AI site that could be construed as a risk, as well as the information being sent to those websites, adding to the signals that we receive from inside a risk, but the adding to the compilation of those as a risk determination.
Mhm. Great. Wow, we covered a lot, Max, in the past hour or 45 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, let's summarize it for everyone here. So we covered how Purview, Purview as a solution has data security, data risk and compliance, and data governance features. And then within all of those, we have features specifically designed to secure and govern AI. And then for AI, it's again split into 3 types of AI that we secure and govern, which is Microsoft Copilot experiences, enterprise AI applications, and other AI. So we cover today for Microsoft 365 Copilot, we want you to apply sensitivity label as a baseline, right, for that enhanced data security. I know, Max, you have a blueprint on this, right?
Yes, we've shared last year a secure by default blueprint that follows a bit of the same principle we discussed today, getting you more secure quickly, apply label at scale, getting better hygiene of security across the board through the mix of the tooling that you have today, whether you have an E3 or E5, doesn't matter. There's options for both.
Mhm.
And where secure by default helps you is just setting up that baseline of how do I want the information to be leveraged? How do I expand? And whether that's encryption or not, by the way, you can expand on the controls with the loss prevention and insider risk management, which in turn helps you making sure that either DLP is controlling that information before being sent to Gen AI or blocking it all outright, or for Copilot to leverage in the prompt response.
Yeah, perfect. And then following that with Microsoft 365 Copilot, we also have DLP for Copilot, right? That block processing of content based on the sensitivity label that is applied to the document. And then we also have insider risk management to detect risky prompts that have been entered or received with Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that's what we covered for securing Microsoft 365 Copilot. On the other AI front, so that's again, the consumer AI browse through your Edge, Chrome, and Firefox browser. We talked about the endpoint DLP in place that can block the upload, copy, and pasting of sensitive information to those other AI websites. And then we talked about IRM, so insider risk management, that can detect users visiting those other AI sites. And then together with adaptive protection, you can then essentially use that scalpel that we talked about to fine tune your DLP blocking for just the high risk users entering sensitive information to those other AI sites.
That's a good recap. I think that this covers well what Purview provides in addition and everything that we have for data security, but just in addition with the lens of protecting you correctly for AI use.
Yes. And I know there might be still some confusion because we cover a lot of different types of AI and we have lots of different policies. So again, just a plug, be sure to check out my new blog that talks about if you just want to secure M365 Copilot, what are some policies you want to consider? If you just want to secure other AI, what are some policies to consider? And then,
And I
uh,
was just checking
yeah,
before we, so just
sure, sure.
checking quickly on some of the questions. I know some of the questions are outside of what the Purview protections are. There are controls available, whether that's in Bing for the enterprise component of it. So there are measures available in those respective admin controls. Today's focus on Purview. Just make sure you set up the right controls available to you in Purview to help secure the right, whether it's the prompt or the use of AI, Gen AI.
For sure, yeah. And then we do have a customer connection program for our customers. It is a place where you can sign up to get private previews, to give us direct feedback, to connect with us. So if you're interested, be sure to sign up today at aka.ms/joinccp.
It's a great
And
place to know
then,
everything else we're working on, not
yes,
for discussion in
right,
this forum. So
beyond
it's a great.
Purview and beyond.
And then,
Yes.
the example I use for this is you would have asked me from a roadmap standpoint a year and a half or so ago. None of this was there yet, right? So it evolves very quickly. CCP or customer
Yeah.
connection program is a great place to be.
Perfect. And we will give two resources here, and we will definitely share the deck information in the chat. Sorry, the links in the chat for you. But we do have Learn Docs also on all of this, how you can, secure and protect your AI with Microsoft Purview. And I know the link was shared just a little bit earlier, but that secure by default Purview deployment blueprints is also linked right here. All right, I think that covers it all, Max. So
Yeah, it does.
thank you.
Likewise, that was great content. Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And before we leave today, we'll do a little bit of a plug. So as we mentioned, this is a 3-week series, right? So
That's
same
right.
time next week, and then the week after we'll have a session. So next week's session is going to be all about data compliance solutions to secure and govern AI. So that's your communication compliance, e-discovery, audit, data lifecycle management, and compliance manager. Hopefully I didn't miss any, but yes.
Nope, it's good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Max, for joining me and having this chat. And yeah, I'm really
Thank you for
excited
having
to.
us.
Yes, thank you for having us. Thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you same time next week.